When Lina Morel entered the Valmont estate, no one recognized the little girl who had once run through its halls. 10 years earlier, the house had still belonged to her family. Her mother played the piano beside the tall windows, and her father ran a respected company. Lina had grown up believing that nothing could ever disturb that life. Then her father had been accused of fraud and embezzlement. Documents bearing his signature had been made public. Witnesses had claimed that he had stolen from his business partners. He had been arrested in front of his wife and daughter, beneath the flashes of journalists' cameras. A few weeks later, the Morel company had been purchased at a low price by Antoine Valmont. Lina's mother had never recovered from the scandal. Her health had deteriorated rapidly, and she had died a few months later. Lina had been sent far away from the city with a small suitcase, a few photographs, and a sun-shaped pendant. For 10 years, she had built her life around a single idea. One day, she would return and destroy the Valmont family. She now went by the name Lina Delcourt. She ran a successful investment firm and knew how to conceal every emotion behind a calm expression. No one could have guessed that the elegant woman crossing the reception hall knew every room in the house.
At the center of the room stood Gabriel Valmont, Antoine's son. Lina had studied his habits, his relationships, and the business dealings of his corporate group. She had prepared herself to meet a cruel and arrogant man. Yet Gabriel was nothing like the monster she had imagined. He seemed reserved, serious, and uninterested in luxury. He protected his employees, opposed certain layoffs, and devoted much of his time to his sick sister. This unexpected kindness unsettled Lina, but she continued with her plan. She arranged several encounters. Every dinner, every meeting, and every reception had been planned to earn his trust. A few weeks later, Gabriel invited her to the estate. When Lina entered the living room, she saw her mother's piano, still standing beside the windows. Her hands began to tremble despite herself. Gabriel noticed her distress, but she managed to hide it. That moment should have convinced her to leave. Instead, it brought her even closer to him. 2 months later, Gabriel asked her to marry him. Lina accepted immediately. For him, the marriage marked the beginning of a new life. For her, it finally gave her access to the heart of the family she intended to destroy. The wedding was held in the estate's private chapel. The entire city attended. Journalists waited outside the gates, while the most influential families watched Gabriel Valmont's new wife. Throughout the ceremony, Antoine never stopped looking at Lina. As she was signing the register, her sun-shaped pendant slipped out from beneath her dress. Antoine's face froze. He had recognized her mother's necklace. Lina understood that he now knew her true identity. She expected him to accuse her, but Antoine remained silent. His reaction worried her more than a public scandal would have. He seemed determined to discover how far she was prepared to go. From the first days of her marriage, Lina began searching through Gabriel's files. She gained access to his computer, copied confidential contracts, and recovered old bank statements. She was looking for proof that the Valmont family had engineered her father's downfall. She sent the documents to Marc Delmas, her father's former business partner. After her mother's death, Marc had found Lina, paid for her education, and fed her anger. For years, he had told her how Antoine had stolen the Morel company. To Lina, Marc was the last connection to her former family. Thanks to the stolen information, several contracts belonging to the Valmont group collapsed. A bank refused an important loan. Investors withdrew. The value of the company began to fall. Lina had waited 10 years for this moment, yet she felt no satisfaction. Gabriel was not trying to save his fortune. He sold some of his possessions to preserve jobs and spent his nights negotiating with the banks. The more Lina attacked, the harder he fought to protect innocent people. And he continued to trust her. Every evening he returned to her without imagining that she was responsible for his troubles. Guilt began to replace hatred. One morning, Antoine summoned Lina to his office. He showed her a photograph from her childhood, then handed her a letter written by her father. In the letter, Pierre Morel explained that he had discovered an embezzlement scheme within his company. The people responsible had threatened his family, and he had agreed to sign a false confession to protect his wife and daughter. He also claimed that Antoine had tried to help him. At first, Lina refused to believe this version of events, yet the letter contained details that no one else could have known. For the first time, the story Mark had told her began to crack. Lina met him in an abandoned warehouse. Mark immediately dismissed the letter and gave her a key containing new evidence against Gabriel. As she was about to leave, Lina noticed a ring on his hand. She recognized it. Her father had been wearing that ring in a photograph taken the day before his arrest. At that moment, Lina understood that Mark had hidden an essential part of the truth from her. She returned to the estate with the feeling that her entire life had been built upon a lie. For 10 years, she had followed a simple story. Her father was innocent. The Valmont family was guilty. Mark had saved her so that one day she could obtain justice. The ring destroyed that certainty. Lina read her father's entire letter again, this time without searching for proof of the Valmont family's guilt. Sentences she had overlooked suddenly took on a different meaning. The vague warnings, the references to a trusted business partner, and the fear that his family might be used against him now seemed to point toward Mark. Thinking about the ring, the information he had always controlled, and the way he had guided her revenge, Lina understood that her father had tried to warn her without being able to write Mark's name directly. Mark had organized the embezzlement through several shell companies, then planned Antoine Valmont's downfall so that he could take control of part of the business. When Pierre discovered the scheme, Mark threatened Lina and her mother. The letter also contained a warning. One day, Mark might try to use Lina against the Valmont family. The truth appeared with brutal clarity. Mark had never protected her. He had fed her anger, financed her return, and directed her attacks in order to destroy the only people who could still expose him. He had turned a wounded child into a weapon. While Lina was trying to absorb this revelation, Gabriel entered the room. He had discovered the files she had hidden, the photographs of her family, the plans of the estate, and the documents detailing every stage of the group's downfall. He understood that their meeting and their marriage had been planned. Lina then revealed her true identity and admitted that she had married Gabriel to gain access to his family. Even though her feelings had changed, the truth had come too late. Gabriel left the estate during the night. The following day, the files on the key Mark had given her were released to several media outlets. The documents had been altered to make it appear that Gabriel was running a new fraud scheme. Digital signatures had been copied and several accounts had been manipulated. The police raided the group's headquarters. Gabriel was arrested in front of the cameras. Lina watched from the middle of the crowd. When she saw the handcuffs close around his wrists, she saw her father being taken away in the same manner 10 years earlier. This time she knew that the man being arrested was innocent. Her silence would make her Mark's accomplice. Lina went to court and publicly revealed her true name. She admitted that she had stolen the confidential documents and explained that she had wanted to avenge her father. She gave the original letter to the police and accused Mark of organizing both fraud schemes. Her confession immediately destroyed the reputation she had built. Her clients withdrew, her business partners abandoned her, and her marriage was portrayed as an act of manipulation. Lina accepted every consequence. Antoine also handed over the evidence he had collected over the years. The files stolen by Lina allowed the authorities to complete his investigation. They uncovered the shell companies, the secret accounts, and several witnesses who had been paid by Mark. Mark attempted to leave the country using false documents. He was arrested near the border. At last, the truth was made public. Pierre Morel was officially cleared after his death. Investigators confirmed that he had accepted responsibility for the fraud in order to protect his family. Gabriel was released 3 days later. When he returned to the estate, Lina was waiting beside the old piano. She had removed her wedding ring. She knew that her confession was not enough to repair months of manipulation. She had saved Gabriel, but she had also destroyed his trust, weakened his company, and used his love to reach his family. Gabriel did not ask her to stay. Lina left the estate the following day. She abandoned the Delcourt name and began using her real name again. She sold some of her possessions to compensate the employees who had suffered because of her attacks. During the months that followed, she learned how to live without revenge. At first, that existence felt empty. Her entire identity had been built around her anger. Without an enemy to fight, she no longer knew who she was. A year passed. Gabriel had taken control of the Valmont group. He had strengthened its financial controls and created a foundation bearing Pierre Morel's name. Lina had rebuilt a smaller company. She now helped businesses that had fallen victim to fraud and families unable to defend themselves against powerful corporations. One morning, she received an invitation to return to the estate. When she entered the living room, she discovered that her mother's piano had been restored. The wood had regained its shine, and the yellowed keys had been replaced. Resting on the piano was the sun-shaped pendant she had believed she had lost on the day of Gabriel's arrest. Beside it lay her wedding ring. Gabriel was not trying to restore their former life. Their first marriage had been built upon a lie, and nothing could erase the past. He only wanted to give them the chance to begin again in a different way. Lina then understood that she had spent her entire life waiting for revenge to return everything she had lost. She had believed that the fall of the Valmont family would bring back her father, erase her mother's death, and repair her childhood. No victory could ever have accomplished that. Revenge had never brought her closer to the dead. It had only driven her away from the living. Lina picked up the ring without immediately placing it on her finger. She sat down at the piano and rested her hands upon the keys. The melody her mother had once played slowly filled the room. Gabriel remained beside her in silence. For the first time, Lina no longer saw the estate as the place where her family had been destroyed. She saw it as the place where she had finally stopped living for revenge. The past had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled her future.